Welcome to the Way of the Taibhsear. This is episode 2, Your Birth Tree. There are 13 moons in the Celtic tree calendar. Because the lunar cycle doesn't line up perfectly with the solar calendar, exact dates cannot be given for the correspondence of the tree calendar with the commonly used Gregorian or Christian calendar, which is solar in origin. This is because those dates are always changing relative to the solar calendar. The order of the Taibhsear's year of 13 moons is similar to the 13-moon lunar cycle observed by many non-Christian peoples throughout the world. Since our lunar calendar doesn't line up perfectly with the more common solar calendar, it takes approximately 19 years for the cycles to match up again. The ancient Greeks called this 19-year period the Matonic Cycle. Coincidentally, Caesar stated in the Gallic Wars that Druids studied for 20 years. So if an ancient Druid served an apprenticeship for a year and a day, and then studied for 19 more years, or the period of the Matonic Cycle, he or she would have studied for a period of 20 years altogether before the Celtic lunar cycle realigned with the Roman solar cycle. So if, for example, a dedicant began to study on the first full moon after the winter solstice, and studied for 19 years, then the next full moon after the winter solstice, after that 19th year, would be on the same day that the dedicant began the path. The stars would be in the same place in the sky, and the sun and the moon would be in the same place on the horizon. It's an interesting coincidence that this period of study so closely matched Caesar's 20-year period. The Celtic tree calendar consists of 13 months named after trees. These trees also correspond to the letters of the Celtic ogham alphabet that we'll be talking about in future podcasts. The origins of the Celtic tree calendar are somewhat controversial. Robert Graves created the earliest known complete version in his book, The White Goddess. Graves claimed that his derivation of the Celtic tree calendar had its origins in an ancient Druid and Bardic tradition. He claimed to have uncovered a secret code hidden in the poetry and prose of the bards of the British Isles in order to demonstrate this claim. Many scholars doubt this, but I prefer to think that the origins of the calendar are irrelevant as long as it has utility for us now. Many pagans throughout the world use Graves' version of the calendar today because of its elegance and utility. And our Order of the Taibhsear uses it for these reasons as well. We're going to read over the Celtic tree months shortly. The dates for each lunar tree month are approximate in this following section, and they're based on the full moon cycle of 2015. In the Order of the Taibhsear, we use 13 months of 28 days each to form our calendar. The first month, which is the Birch Moon, begins with the first full moon after the winter solstice. Each month thereafter begins 28 days later. Since we use months of 28 days as a matter of convenience, our months don't necessarily line up perfectly with the lunar cycle, but they're close enough for our purposes. With 13 months of 28 days each, we have a total of 364 days. This leftover day, which marks our year and a day period, is a holy day dedicated to mistletoe. In leap years, we have 2 days dedicated to mistletoe. If you were born on a mistletoe day, you have the potential to be a powerful healer. When calculating the months in this manner, the starting and ending dates of each month would be different depending on the year being observed. In the order of the Taibhsear, the date of the first full moon after the winter solstice of the year in which you were born would be the first day of the Birch Moon. 28 days after that would be the first day of the Rowan Moon, and so forth. Other traditions use different methods to calculate the tree months, but this is the method that seems to work best for our principles and practices. It seems to be a good way to reconcile the lunar calendar and the solar cycle. Each month of the Celtic tree calendar is associated with a tree or other plant. A Celtic horoscope can be constructed by listing the properties of each tree of the Celtic tree calendar. The tree or plant associated with your birth month is your birth tree. One of the exercises for the dedicant path of our order is to spend a year and a day learning about a tree or plant. Traditionally, you would spend this time period in learning about your own birth tree, but for those living in urban or suburban environments, finding a birth tree might be challenging. If you're fortunate enough to have access to a birth tree, you may wish to use it for your period of study. If not, you might select another tree that seems to call to you. It may also be that when you find your birth tree, it doesn't quite resonate with you. That's okay too. Many pagans, druids, and Taibhsears believe in reincarnation, and it would be arbitrary to focus on the date of birth in this life if you have lived multiple lives prior to this one. If you find that your birth tree doesn't really fit you, then select one that you feel more comfortable with. Once you've actually found a tree that you're ready to work with, you'll need to actually find one of these trees near your home. This tree should be located in a place that would make it convenient to visit at least once a week. You may be fortunate enough to have such a tree in your backyard. If not, perhaps you can find one at a local park. In just a moment, we're going to list the aspects and qualities of each moon. Once you've found your birth tree, consult with this information to follow to see what your birth tree says about you. The dates below are for 2015, so you may wish to calculate the tree months for the year of your birth using the method we've already talked about, after consulting a lunar almanac to identify the first full moon after the winter solstice prior to the date of your birth. For more information on this, you may visit the Order of the Taibhsear's website at taibhsear.com. That's taibhsear.com. The first moon of the Celtic tree calendar, used by the Order of the Taibhsear, is the Birch Moon. Its date is January 4th to January 31st for the year 2015. Its aspect is feminine. This is a moon of beginnings, purification, and inception. The white of the birch's bark symbolizes purity. This month also symbolizes the protection of children. Birch people are creative and compassionate, and they have a firm inner resolve and lend strength to those around them. Birches are quietly determined, often working for change behind the scenes. Common sense and practical, clear solutions to problems are strengths for birch people. The next moon is the Rowan Moon. Its dates for 2015 are February 1st to February 28th. Its aspect is masculine. The wood of the rowan is often used for making wands and tools of divination. This is the moon of shamans and seers. Rowan people are associated with personal empowerment, healing, and vision. Rowan people have a keen sense of intuition. This powerful intuition is often used to protect self and others. Their ability to see the future often sets them apart from others. They sometimes seem to live in two worlds at once. Ash Moon is March 1st to March 28th for 2015. Its aspect is feminine. Ash is another popular wood for crafting magic tools. The feminine energy of the ash is associated with water spirits and the powers of water. Ash people are associated with prosperity, protection, and the healing arts. Ash people also have a special ability to see the connections in the web of life. They are natural empaths and share the pains and joys of others. This tends to make them very compassionate people. The dates for the Alder Moon are March 29th to April 25th. Its aspect is masculine. Alder people are very practical people. They focus on solutions. They're dutiful and they're good teachers. Alder people are usually quite intelligent, and the power of weather magic is associated with this moon. They also love to fight for what's right and expect and expend a great deal of energy in pursuing justice. They can also sometimes dissipate energy needlessly by getting involved in frivolous debates. The dates for the Willow Moon are April 26th to May 23rd. Its aspect is feminine. The Willow Moon is known as the Witch's Moon. It's associated with fertility and balance. Willow people are romantic and well-rounded. The willow is associated with the moon in all of her phases. This means that willow people are driven more by instinct than intellect. If you are a willow, pay attention to your dreams and let them guide you. The Hawthorn Moon is May 24th to June 30th. Its aspect is masculine. People of the Hawthorn Moon are people capable of self-restraint. This moon is associated with peace, prosperity, and binding magic. It is a sign of both fertility and death. Hawthorn deals with the necessity of change and transition. If you are a hawthorn, your motto should be, "This too shall pass." The Oak Moon is June 21st to July 18th. Oak people are strong, wise, and secure. People born under this moon are true and faithful. It is associated with the energy of the bear. If you are an oak, you are concerned with strength of character, and your word is your bond. You are able to endure, but direct your energies wisely lest you unintentionally harm others in your zeal. The Holly Moon is July 19th to August 15th. Its aspect is feminine. This moon is associated with the powers of protection. Holly people also have the gift of divination, and they are protectors of the animals. The Holly Moon is also associated with the powers of sex magic. Holly people have a deep connection to the earth, and they have a generous spirit that commands the respect and admiration of others. The Hazel Moon is August 16th to September 12th. Its aspect is feminine. This is the moon of the wise. It is associated with the wisdom of the elders. People of the hazel are said to be good at spirit contact and at manifesting desires. If you are a hazel, the gift of persuasion is yours. You have the ability to help others to see things your way and to resolve conflicts. Moderate this gift by only giving advice when it has been asked for. The Vine Moon is September 13th to October 10th. Its aspect is androgynous. Vine people are good people who know how to celebrate. This moon is sacred to the goddess Breed and is associated with spirituality. It's also associated with dreams, magic, and inspiration. Vine people are courageous people. They're also very sociable and have the gift of reading the thoughts and emotions of others. If you're a vine, you are able to restore balance to most situations by smoothing over ruffled feathers and finding a common solution. The Ivy Moon, October 11th to November 7th, is masculine. Ivy people are resilient and adaptive people. They thrive in the most situations. They're also very cooperative people and natural peacemakers. If you're an Ivy, you have a talent for advancing your own personal agenda. Moderate this gift by being considerate of others when advancing your own personal plans. The Reed Moon is November 8th to December 5th. The reed is a type of tree that doesn't grow in the United States, so the Order of the Taibhsear uses the slippery elm for this month. Its aspect is feminine. Its energy is associated with the hearth and the home. Reed people are protectors of the family and speakers of truth. They keep the home fires burning. They often have hidden secret strengths that even they may not be aware of. They may also have secret motivations. If you're a Reed, use your ability to figure things out wisely and don't overstep your boundaries. The Elder Moon is December 6th to January 2nd. Its aspect is masculine. Elder people are good at banishing negative energies. This is their power of healing. This moon is also associated with the power of reincarnation and rebirth. It is a moon of completeness as the cycle completes itself. Elders are able to thrive and prosper even in adverse situations. This is because they've lived many lives and carry bits of wisdom from former lives into this life. The danger in being an elder is getting caught up in past events instead of focusing on today. The day of mistletoe for 2016 is January 3rd. Its aspect is androgynous. The Druids referred to mistletoe as all heal because they believed it able to cure virtually anything. Mistletoe people have the gift of healing and are the most powerful of all healers. Those born on a mistletoe day tend to be doctors, nurses, herbalists, therapists, or counselors. Since mistletoe is also attached with fertility, mistletoe people tend to have success at romantic relationships and are generally good with children. Mistletoe people should guard against a natural tendency to be dismissive once spurned. Going back over the information that we've covered, find your own birth tree if you wish to spend a year and a day learning about a plant. Starting with your birth date, work backwards to the winter solstice immediately preceding the day and year of your birth. In the northern hemisphere, this would be around December 21st. Next, find the date of the first full moon after that particular winter solstice. Then keep counting up in 28-day increments until you arrive at the tree month associated with your birth. The first 28 days after the first full moon would be the Birch month, the second 28 days would be the Rowan month, and so on. Does the information associated with your tree month seem to fit you? If not, is there another tree, perhaps from a previous life, that would fit you better? Select a tree, preferably your birth tree, to spend a year and a day with. If you're fortunate enough to have one of your birth trees nearby, plan on visiting it at least once a week for a year. If you do not have a birth tree nearby, you may select another tree with which to develop a relationship. If there are no trees or other plants at all in your immediate area, spend at least one day a week doing research on a tree or a plant of your choosing. The purpose of this exercise is to gain intimate knowledge of a tree of the ogham, so make your selection with that goal in mind. Learn as much as you can about your birth tree. Are there any medicinal uses for your tree? Does your tree have any magical uses? How is your tree like you? How is it different? What strengths does your tree have that you find lacking in yourself? What strengths do you possess that your tree does not? What can you learn about yourself from studying your tree? As you learn about your tree, don't forget to bring it gifts from time to time. You might pour a libation, or a small bit of bread, or to even tie a colored ribbon around a branch. Talk to your tree and listen for a reply. Don't expect answers in words. Listen with your heart and with your spirit. Spend the entire year learning from your tree and befriending it. You should get to know your tree in all seasons. Watch how it changes from season to season. Know its moods and its habits. Know its needs and its gifts. Become an expert on your tree. It's been said that the ancient Druids studied for a period of 20 years. Not counting the vowels, there are 20 letters in the ogham alphabet. If you spend a year and a day studying each of these trees associated with the consonants of the ogham, you would have studied for the same length of time as the ancient Druids. Learning your tree's moods is one of the goals of your year-and-a-day journey. At first it might seem odd to think of trees as having moods, but as you come to know your tree, it may not seem so odd at all. As you spend your year with your tree, learning its moods will become almost second nature to you. To begin understanding how to learn a tree's feelings, think about how you observe the feelings of your friends and family. A subtle change of posture, or a slight change of facial expression, and you can tell what your romantic partner or your family member is feeling. Likewise, the more you know your tree, the more you will become sensitive to its moods. Explore it with all your senses. Taste its fruit, smell its blossoms, touch its bark. Does its scent change with the seasons? Does its bark feel different in the morning than it does in the evening? Can you tell by the taste when the fruit is ripe for the picking? The more time you spend with your tree, the more you will become attuned to how these changes manifest. When you truly come to know your tree, you will see that it can predict the weather by the way its leaves orient themselves. You will be able to know when your tree is about to bear fruit, when its leaves will begin to shed, and when the seasons are about to change. When you begin to understand the ways of weaving life energy that surrounds and permeates our world, you can also take energy from your tree when you need it, and you can give energy back to your tree when it needs you. To begin understanding your tree's moods, talk to it and listen for a reply. Don't listen with your ears. Listen with your heart. If you're sincere in your efforts, your tree will reward you. When you're successful, you'll have taken the first step on the way of the Taibhsear. The sacred tree is a symbol that is as old as humankind. It may even be older. Our primate ancestors lived in the trees and understood their safety and their strength. Most of the world's religions have some sort of sacred tree, from the tree of knowledge of the Bible to the lotus tree under which Buddha became enlightened. Contemplate the tree. See it in your mind. Note that its roots go deep into the soil. Its branches stretch high into the heavens, uniting the realms of earth and sky. As a symbol of the mind, the roots of the tree go deep into the unconscious world of our hidden thoughts and desires. The branches of consciousness turn our thoughts towards the light of reason. The soil that feeds our minds is made of the emotions of our lifetimes, spread out deep and thick, and hidden from the light of day. The roots of our tree of mind feed on this fertile soil. Our daily experiences are the sun, wind, and rain that feed and nurture our minds, or cause them to be uprooted in the storm. What sort of tree are you? Are you an oak that firmly stands its ground when the winds of misfortune blow? Or are you a willow that remains rooted by bending and flowing with the storm? Are you an apple tree that gives freely of its fruit of knowledge? Or are you a thorny mayhaw that makes the seeker fight for the harvest? Do you shed your leaves in the winter and hibernate? Or are you a green tree year-round, bringing life and energy to your leaf-shedding friends in their own cold winters? The Druids based their alphabet on the trees. Each letter of the alphabet represented a tree. A Druid could leave a message for another Druid simply by arranging leaves on a string. Each leaf represented a tree, and each tree represented a letter. What messages do the trees give to you? When you are in the woods, what do you feel? Explore the forest with your senses. Can you taste the weather on the wind? What is the nature of your relationship with the trees? Do you hear their language? Do they whisper to you in the dawn? When a Celtic warrior died, a tree was planted on his grave. As the tree grew, the warrior's body became part of the tree. As the roots embraced the fallen one, his soul became one with the tree. Ancient Celts saw faces in the leaves of the trees, much as we see shapes in the clouds. These were the faces of their fallen ancestors. The next time you walk in the woods, look for the faces of your ancestors who have passed to the other side. What sort of trees have they chosen to dwell in? What can you learn from your ancestors by the trees that they inhabit? The Green Man is the embodiment of nature in human form. If you encounter the Green Man on your journey, ask him a question and listen for his reply. Life can be understood through the trees. Each tree has its own character, its own gifts, and its own way of being in the world. As you study the trees, ask what lessons each has to teach you. Learn to be open to the answers you receive. The Celts marked the months of the year using trees. Each month was named for a different tree, so the Celtic year revolved around the trees. The archetype of the tree represents a map for the structure of reality. Its roots disappear into the unknown depths, while its leaves reach for the heights of knowledge. The branches may turn in many directions, seeking knowledge in all those directions, but they all have a common source in the trunk of the tree. The ancient Celts believed that a giant tree stood at the center of the earth. The earth revolved around the axis of this tree. This world tree was the source of all knowledge and wisdom, connecting this world with all the other worlds beyond. Without it, the world would wither and die. What is your world tree? Upon what axis does your world revolve? Celtic lore and history, there's an alphabet known as ogham. This alphabet has its origins, as far as anyone knows, in medieval Ireland, although it may be older than that. The original ogham contained 20 letters. 5 more were added later, for a total of 25 letters. One theory of the origins of this alphabet says that it was created by the Druids during the Roman occupation. According to this theory, the ogham was created so that the Druids could send messages to each other without fear of them being read by Romans accustomed to a Latin alphabet. This is highly doubtful, since the Druids didn't like to write things down, and the ogham is unknown prior to medieval times. Whatever its origin, ogham is used by many modern Taibhsears, Druids, and Celtic pagans for both communication and divination. For divination purposes, each letter of the ogham is inscribed on a rune called a few. Each of these fews has a divinatory aspect or meaning. These fews are placed in a crane bag, shaken or stirred, then drawn out and laid in various ways and interpreted. Each of the 25 letters of the ogham is associated with a plant or a tree. The ogham is sometimes referred to as the Celtic tree alphabet, but that's somewhat misleading, as some of the plants of the ogham are not trees. For those interested in the healing and magical properties of plants, the ogham is a great place to start. Knowing the medicinal and magical properties of the plants of the ogham would give you a good basic foundation in both herbalism and magic. Not only that, but since each letter of the ogham is associated with a plant, one druid may have left a message for another by simply arranging leaves on a string. Each leaf represents a plant of the ogham, and each plant represents a letter. Some Taibhsear groves actually use this technique as a test of one's abilities, by leaving messages for students in the form of leaves. If the student can decipher these messages, they are considered learned in the art of the ogham. Each month on the Taibhsear's lunar calendar is also associated with a tree and a letter of the ogham. A horoscope can be constructed by finding the tree month of your birth and studying the properties of that tree, as we discussed earlier in the program. So the ogham contains a calendar, a means of divination, and a means of healing. Obviously, there's a wealth of information to be obtained from the study of the ogham. For this reason, anyone wishing a good basic foundation in the way of the Taibhsear would go far towards accomplishing this goal by studying the ogham in depth. Ogham writing is unique in that it is a vertical method of writing, starting from the bottom up. Letters are constructed on a vertical baseline. There are 5 groups of 5 letters, each consisting of hash marks on either side of the baseline. Think of this baseline as the trunk of a tree, and the hash marks as its branches. The original ogham alphabet, consisting of 20 letters, was known as the Feda. It was arranged in groups of 5 letters each. These groups were called oghmi. The singular is acme. The word acme means family. Each acme is named after the first letter. So the first acme would be acme bay, the second acme would be acme ua, and so forth. 5 additional letters were later added to cover the vowel sounds. This 5th acme is known as the forfeda, or acme coed, for the first character of this one. The Book of Ballymote was written in the 14th century, and it contains a section known as the Ogham Tract, which explains the ogham in great detail. A mandala can be constructed using the letters of the ogham. This mandala consists of 5 concentric circles upon which the letters are inscribed. This mandala is called the Taibhsear. The word Taibh means ridgepole or roof tree. If you imagine yourself lying on your back and looking up at the ceiling of an ancient Celtic roundhouse, you might get the idea of the origin of its name. You may also see it as lying at the base of a tree and looking up at the branches. Each letter of the Taibhsear represents a branch, and each branch represents a tree of the ogham. So in the way, the Taibhsear is a tree of trees. The tree of life, or the world tree, is a concept shared in the mythologies of many cultures. The tree of life is found in the Bible, in many Native American mythologies, in Hinduism, in the Kabbalah, in Buddhism, in Norse mythology, in Celtic mythology, and in many other cultures worldwide. The Irish called the tree of life Cranbea. The general idea of the world tree, or the tree of life, is that it is a giant tree at the center of the earth. It is the axis upon which the world turns. It unites the three realms of the Matonic, or the underworld, Middle Earth, where the humans and the animals dwell, and the heavens. The roots of the world tree go deep into the underground, and its branches reach as high into the heavens. So the world tree is present in all three realms at once and unites them all. The world tree, or the tree of life, is also seen as the source of all life energy. It is the origin of the Nyert, or the force of life. It radiates from its branches and its roots, giving life to all living creatures. Since it is the source of all life, it too is a tree of trees, providing the life energy for all other trees and all other creatures. These trees in turn provide food, shelter, and habitat for all other living creatures. The Taibhsear, also known as Finn's Wheel, is a graphic representation of the concept of the tree of life. It contains the 5 ogham of 5 letters of the ogham in 5 circles. Each of these letters of the ogham also represents a plant. 13 of the letters represent the moons of the Druid year, or the Taibhsear year. The circles of Finn's Wheel can also be interpreted as the path of the stars as they make their nightly and yearly circuits across the sky. The layout of Finn's Wheel incorporates the number 5 throughout. There are 5 circles and 5 groups of 5 letters. The fivefold nature of Finn's Wheel can represent the 5 kingdoms of ancient Ireland, or the 5 phases of life, being infancy, adolescence, adulthood, middle age, and old age, or the 5 elements of earth, air, fire, water, and void, or quintessence, or the 5 directions, north, south, east, west, and center, or the 5 types of knowledge: knowledge of nature, knowledge of mind, knowledge of spirit, knowledge of magic, and knowledge of being. Or they can represent any number of other 5-fold interpretations. Bards in training in the Order of the Taibhsear also learn 5 types of breath control to aid them in seeking inspiration and in properly modulating their voices for the recitation of poetry and prose. The ability to control the breath leads to the ability to alter consciousness, and inspiration is nothing if not a different type of consciousness. These 5 methods of breathing will be covered in future podcasts. The Taibhsear is sometimes referred to as Finn's Window or Finn's Wheel, after the master bard Finn MacCool, who is said to have been trained by the druid Finnegas. Since it symbolically incorporates the trees and the plants, the stars, the moons, and divination, It represents the source of all knowledge. For this reason, it is often used as a focal point for meditation. As you study the ogham, it may help to have Finn's wheel handy for reference. A copy of it may be found on the Order of the Taibhsear's website at www.taibhsear.com. Look for the link under Education that says ogham. Ogham, by the way, is spelled O-G-H-A-M. The G-H is silent. As your knowledge of ogham increases, you may wish to study the relationships of the various symbols on Finn's wheel and their associations. For example, the ogham character ruis represents the elder tree and the elder moon, which is usually late November to early December. The divinatory meaning of ruis is transition and rebirth. On Finn's wheel, this symbol is associated with the winter solstice, the element of earth, and the cardinal directions of the north. It is also the symbol closest to the center on Finn's wheel. The center represents the sacred well of knowledge, Caridwen's cauldron of inspiration. If you were contemplating Finn's wheel, you might ask yourself, what is the relationship of all of these representations and interpretations? What does rebirth have to do with the winter solstice, or with the element of earth, or with the direction of the north? What does it mean that ruis is so close to the source of all knowledge on Finn's wheel? As you contemplate these meanings, remember that there is no right or wrong answer to these questions. As long as you are able to find relationships that are meaningful to you, then your interpretation will be a good one. In coming podcasts, we will be studying each character of the ogham in detail, examining the magical and healing properties of each plant. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more, visit Taibhsear.com. Thanks for listening to The Way of the Taibhsear on International Pagan Radio, where it's all pagan all the time. This has been Episode 2, Your Birth Tree. The Way of the Taibhsear is sponsored by the Order of the Taibhsear. Learn more about us at Taibhsear.com. That's spelled Taibhsear.com. We'd love to hear listener feedback. Get in touch with us by emailing us at podcast@Taibhsear.com. Again, that spelling is Taibhsear. If your Grover's Circle has an upcoming event and you'd like to hear us feature it on the podcast, let us know. The Way of the Taibhsear is a weekly podcast. Get your announcement to us at least 2 weeks prior to the event, and we'll try to announce it for you. The Way of the Taibhsear is a podcast about Druidry and paganism as practiced by the Order of the Taibhsear. Paganism is a wide and diverse community, and we don't claim to speak for all pagans. If you have a differing opinion, feel free to get in touch with us, and we can share your comments with our listening audience. We're always looking for interesting guests and topics. If you have a topic you'd like to hear about, or if you're interested in being a guest on the show, please email us at podcast@Taibhsear.com. Until next time, blessings of the ancestors.